Simon, there's a number of layers to cloud applications. We've got software as a service for the user. We have platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, underpinning everything. What really is of interest to the enterprise?
I think eventually all three will be, but certainly in the near term, I think everyone will start using first software as a service, and I think we probably all understand software as a service. Probably today we all talk about Salesforce.com.
Yes.
But clearly there are a lot of other applications. In fact, IT are probably using software as a service in message labs or some other filtering system for their email. So arguably, many enterprises are using software as a service today. But I'm sure that that will become more pervasive as years go on. Infrastructure as a service, I think, is a big growth area. That's where we hear of Amazon.com or Google or others. And it's where the enterprise will start recognising rather than running operating systems locally with racks of computers in underpowered data centres, overheated data centres, that they can move those OSs up to the cloud. I think it's probably going to be several years before we really start seeing an enterprise using platform as a service, because that really needs a change in the way that you architect and write applications.
Yeah. That sounds like the sort of thing that's going to have an impact on the IT profession itself, Simon, because people are going to see their jobs perhaps move out of the enterprise to some sort of cloud hosting situation. Do you think that's the case?
Again, I think we need to look at what type of cloud. The three delivery models: software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. As enterprises, end users start using software as a service, I can well see that the internal ID department needs less people. But infrastructure as a service, arguably, all you're doing is moving an operating system from under your desk up to the cloud. So the IT professional that monitors, manages, secures, writes the application, all his job is still there. It's just the physical location or where he's deploying changes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier about the names we already know of, like Amazon, Google. Obviously, Microsoft are very big in the sort of cloud space, aren't they, with their Azure product. Do you see it going in the way of having just a few huge providers and not a lot else out there in terms of choice?
So I'd be very surprised if that's the case. There's two good reasons why that won't be. First, by definition, those platforms are going to be very generalised. They're for the mass market. And second, it's all about innovation. And again, by definition, because of their size, they're going to be relatively slow to react. So I think then you need to look at the types of people going to be using these clouds and the user bases. Social networks will have a certain requirement. You start looking at vertical industries, retail, they need to be PCI compliant. If you're working in the NHS, you need connectivity to nhs.net. If you're particularly concerned about carbon and green, you might want a certain type of cloud. So I think there will be not only very specialist clouds, but there will be more agile clouds, or clouds that are written to specific communities, with specific functionality that Microsoft, Google, et al. Won't be able to deploy.
Right. I mean, I understand the concept of a specialised cloud. Private clouds almost sounds like a contradiction in terms, though, doesn't it? It's a cloud, but you can't get into it. Is that really a cloud anymore?
Public cloud, private cloud, virtual private clouds. It can be very, very confusing. One of the big dilemmas or difficulties is there's no standard dictionary that we all work to.
Now, when vendors sell the concept of the cloud, they kind of give the impression that everything IT is going to be delivered that way. What's your view of that?
Well, I did a presentation recently, and my slide was what does the cloud equal? And it equals whatever the vendor's product is. Every vendor today, their product is cloud enabled. I think it helps their share price or their positioning. Reality for most of them, it's the same product that they had 5 years ago.
Security is always a concern, always raises its head with IT issues, doesn't it? The cloud seems a very vague concept and thus seems a lot vaguer security-wise. What's your view of that?
I think that's really all about perception and education. I guess first, over the last 10 years, I've actually walked in the City of London off a street into someone's data centre. Physically, it was insecure. I've worked with or known of people that if the employer knew who they were, they certainly wouldn't be employing them. I think all of us have at times seen processes within an IT organisation that, again, have been insecure or haven't backed up things that are meant to be backed up, just as one example.
Yeah.
So again, I think the perception that the cloud is inherently insecure is wrong. What we do need to look at is all about the risk that you're trying to secure against, and you need to understand the risk and mitigate the risk. So is it about the SLA, that you know that your application, your data is going to be there tomorrow morning? Is it about audit, that you know it has been audited and to what standard? I think one of the difficulties is many cloud providers today provide a marketing-led white paper about security, and the organisation, the enterprise, can't actually go in there themselves and feel it, touch it, see the people, the processes and the technology.
Interesting. Now, I wonder then if there's something to be discussed here around the idea of the cloud solving a problem that's not even there. I mean, what's the motivation really for people going across when they've got systems that hopefully work now?
Well, there's many reasons people are going to use the cloud, and I'm absolutely sure over the coming years more of us will use it for more things. But again, it's not a cure for cancer.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So you've got to understand what it will bring to your business. And today, certainly amongst our client base, we see three things. Predominantly, it's about agility. Yeah. They can move things around quicker and easier. They can scale up, they can scale down, they can put more resource there when needed. Yeah. So it lessens the need to capacity plan. I think secondly, it's about quality of service. Yeah. Quality of service in many ways. It might be just instant failover. It might be about the lack of the need for expensive DR that many of us have had to buy and procure over the last years. Finally, I think you can save some costs, but it's absolutely wrong to lead with cloud computing will reduce your costs.
That shouldn't be a key motivator, you're saying? No.
I don't think it is.
No.
Again, because ultimately the computing part of running IT is a small part. It's about the process, it's about the people, it's about the application development, it's about monitoring and management. All you're doing is moving the compute cycle from under your desk up to the cloud.
Yeah.
Yes, it gives you agility. Yes, it absolutely gives you quality of service, but the cost difference is relatively small in your overall IT budget.
Okay. What's the role of VMware in all this?
Well, today they're absolutely key. Certainly most of the large clouds or cloud providers are using VMware. Will that be the case forever? Undoubtedly. They will have stiff competition, but today vital in the way we deliver.
If someone's watching this now, and hopefully many people are, and they're thinking to themselves, well, this sounds like something I should be exploring, what would you recommend the first step for an enterprise to be to look at the issues around all this?
Okay, so I think, first, again, we come back to, I think many enterprises will be using the cloud today. Many IT departments won't know that their users have actually signed up for Salesforce.com or some other software as a service. So it's understanding your applications, understanding your business requirements, and then understanding the different types of delivery model that there are.
So Simon, is cloud the only delivery model then, or is there going to be other things that people should be taking into account?
I'd certainly be surprised that, certainly in my working lifetime, hopefully only in the next 10 years, that cloud will become the only delivery model. Today, for most of us, we have IT in-house. It's under the desk, it's in racks in our computer room, in our data centre. Undoubtedly, we'll see a move towards the cloud. But will everything be there? I'll be somewhat surprised. I think for some organisations, typically smaller organisations, startups, people with less complex needs, they will be able to move to the cloud faster. It'll be more appropriate for them.
Sure.
But large enterprises, I think there will still be three physical delivery models. On-premise, although that will be reducing. Secondly, hosted or outsourced, we'd call it today.
Yeah.
And I think that's where most of it will move. And then certain applications or types of infrastructure will move to the cloud. And I think you'd be surprised that most outsourcers will be using the cloud as their delivery model.